Hey guys, what's going on? Hope everybody's doing good out there. Really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to watch the video. Today we're going to share with you guys some deep cranking tips, specifically geared for guys that maybe you're just getting into it. You may have been doing it a while, but you want some more tips on it. I've got a bunch of good tips that's really going to help you catch some more fish on it. Real quick too, if you guys are interested in buying any deep crankbaits, I'll include the Baitworks link in the description. Guys, they have got every deep crankbait made in the country there at Baitworks. They got tons of them there. I'll include the link in the description. If you use that link, it's a really good way to help support the channel here. So much appreciated. Okay guys, deep cranking. Deep cranking is probably one of the top, I'm putting it in the top 5 best ways to catch big bass. It is a great technique for catching big ones at certain times of the year, which is right now, the month of June. In my opinion, June is the #1. There's not even another month close. Best cranking, deep cranking month that there is. And a lot of this has to do with the stage that the fish are in. A lot of these fish in June, it's a post-spawn situation, early summer patterns. They've moved, out of those spawning areas. They're starting to set up on the drop-offs, on the ledges, on the humps, points, that type of stuff. And in the month of June, you will find these bass a lot of times schooled more than they're schooled any other time of year, especially the quality fish. And one of the best ways to catch them is deep cranking. There's something about a deep crankbait in the month of June that will trigger those bigger fish to hit. Now what happens, guys, is as the summer goes on, like into July and August, the deep cranking is not as effective. You can still catch fish on it, but it's not near as good as it is in late May and the month of June. It seems like a big worm and a Carolina rig and a football head jig, swim bait, hair jig, that type of stuff works better as the summer goes on. But in June, this is the time of year you want to take advantage of that. And I think one of the big keys is, #1, the deep diving crankbait. The fish are in a feeding mode. They're hungry after spawning, they're ready to feed. And a deep diving crankbait is an aggressive bait. It imitates perch and shad, which they're feeding on. And also, like I said, it'll trigger a reaction strike from those bigger fish. So a couple different things what I want to talk about here. I'm not going to go into a lot of the areas here because we'll save another video, but I will say that the top areas for your deep cranking are going to be, and obviously depending on what lakes you're fishing in a part of the country, but they're going to be on your drop-offs, on your river channel ledges, on your main and secondary points that have brush on it, something like that. Any type of irregular features like that, road beds, humps, high spots, offshore structure, that type of stuff. When those fish are in that sort of that 7 to 15 foot zone for the most part, that's the areas that you need to look for, and that's another video. Specifically, what I want to talk about, guys, today is some of the ways to fish this thing, and a little bit about some of the color patterns that you use on it with it. Now, one of the things that I found out about it, in the month of June, the retrieve that you want to use on a deep crankbait is so key. You can catch them just throwing it out there and cranking it in, but guys, one of the things I learned from all the expert deep crankers from back in North Carolina, back in the day, like Jeff Coble and Bad Eye Beck, Gerald Beck, and Fritz, and all those type of guys, is when you throw that deep crankbait out there, point your rod tip straight at the bait and reel it with a fast stop and go retrieve. Almost burning it, fast stop and go. That is the cadence, and that's the pace that triggers those bigger fish to hit. And if those fish, especially after you catch one, if you catch one just fishing, a lot of times you can use that fast stop and go retrieve to really trigger those bigger fish to hit. Another thing about that is the big crankbait, since you're casting a lot of times at a long distance and they're stretching your line, that's why a lot of those deep crankers don't like to have any type of angle in the rod. They like to just point it straight at the bait. I learned that from Gerald Beck, one of the top deep crankers that there is, and you don't lose hardly any fish. So anyway, in my opinion, guys, there's 2 primary colors that you want to concentrate in. You want some type of a perch pattern, and you want some type of a shad pattern. This is the Megabass Deep 6 here, one of my favorite deep crankbaits. This is the Rapala DT 16 right here. A lot of different ones. I use a bunch of them. DD22s, fat-free shads, some of the Strike King stuff. You know, like I said, I really like the Mega Bass because it gets truly down deep, down to 20 feet. So the thing that I found out is early and late in the day, or on low light days, or if you have water clarity in the lake that you're fishing that's less than 3 feet deep, the perch pattern or something with some type of a chartreuse back will trigger those bigger fish to hit. The thing about the chartreuse though is they get conditioned to it pretty quick. After you catch several of them, it gives itself away. But the biggest, most aggressive fish in the school is going to hit the chartreuse right off the bat. What happens is if I catch 2 or 3 and the action slows down, that's when I mop them up and I go back to some type of a shad pattern. You can use like an Ozark shad pattern, you can use a sexy shad pattern. If the water's clear, I might go to more of a translucent finish like this. But these shad patterns will catch the more non-aggressive fish. And also the shad patterns work better if you've got those days where there's not much wind, or if it's brighter, if it's bluebird skies, if it's really bright, that type of stuff, or if the lake's getting a lot of fishing pressure, the shad pattern will tend to work better. So I always have both on. When I'm deep cranking in June, I've got 2 rods out, or 2 different colors out. I've got the perch pattern, chartreuse sides, and I've got the shad pattern. That's really key on that. Another thing with that is going to help you guys out is you need to make long casts with the deep crankbait, because the deep crankbait, it's all about knocking that bottom. I don't care if you're in 5 feet or if you're in 20 foot, you've got to be hitting that bottom. You've got to be deflecting that bait off of the bottom to get those fish to hit. And the longer cast that you make, it gives your bait more time in that deeper water. So try to make a very long cast, and you do that by your equipment. The rod you want to use on these things, you need to use a long rod. I use that 7-foot 11-inch Mega Bass launcher for my deep crank, but you need to use something that is over 7.5 feet, in my opinion. The 7.5 foot rod or super long rod, and like something with a medium to medium soft tip on it, not only that gives you the distance with that longer cast, but when you set the hook on a long rod, it allows you to take up more line on the hook set, and this is really critical if you're got that fish that bites way out there. Another thing with deep cranking, guys, is when you get a bite on a deep crankbait, one of the things that you have to do is, once you have that fish hooked, you don't really have to set the hook, but you need to reel fast. It's like when I get a fish on, I just start reeling as fast as I can, and I reel them almost as fast as I can as long as they're coming to the boat. As soon as they go past the boat, or if they make another direction like they're going away from me, that is when I back out, I free spool, let them have the line on there. But the thing about it is you want to get control of that fish. The quicker that you get that fish to the boat, the quicker you're going to get that fish into the boat, the quicker you get it close to the boat. That's another big key on it too. Another thing on there is your hooks on it. I usually, on all my hooks, I'll take a lot of the stock ones out, and I'll go to the Gamakatsu G Finesse trebles on there. I think the Gamakatsu G Finesse treble is the best treble hook to use on it. Aaron Martin's got me using it back when he first designed that hook many years ago. It's a small diameter, light wire type hook, but it's really stiff. It goes really good on there. And also, I throw my deep crankbaits most all the time on anywhere between 12 to 20 pound test Seaguar and Vizex fluorocarbon line. I prefer to use, if I can get by with like 15 to 17 pound test line, that's what I like to use with them, because I feel that it stands up against the abrasion of the rock. And when you're throwing that big heavy deep diving crankbait, I mean, it just helps if you have a little bit heavier line on that. So anyway, guys, that's just a few quick tips. Like if you guys are getting started out on it, try some of those. I think it's going to help you guys catch some more fish. Now's the time to do it. If you guys are ever wanting to catch one deep cranking, there's not a better time to do it than actually from right now over about the next 3 or 4 weeks. So hope that helps out, guys, and thanks for tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and we'll see y'all later.